After a slow start, the Saints offense overwhelms the Titans as Mike Thomas sets a legendary receiving record. Plus, LSU is likely to be without Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the playoff semifinals. Tulane's Willie Fritz is likely to stay uptown a bit longer. Sam Spiegelman breaks down the early signing period, and Teddy Bridgewater has inspired a new children's book. The path to the #1 seed in the NFC playoffs is simple. The Saints can be no lower than the 3 seeds. Beat Carolina, then one Green Bay loss or tie moves the Saints up 1 spot, and Seattle beating the 49ers next week moves them up the other spot. I'm Doug Mouton. Welcome to 4th Down on 4. The Saints kept those #1 seed hopes alive with a strong finish in Nashville after a sluggish start. Andrew Doak was there.
Even in the most dire of circumstances this season, the Saints have almost always found a way to get it done. Whether they were missing their quarterback, their top running back, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, or even most of their secondary like today, they've showed up, kicked tail, and taken names.
I've been very impressed, and especially with like you said, guys going down and bringing actually new faces into the building that haven't been with us all year. We go out and still perform. It's huge, and it just goes to show that the coaching and players, everybody's bringing those guys up, and it's a next man up mentality, and you have to. I mean, it's a war of attrition.
But today's war didn't start off according to plan. Before the end of the first quarter, the Saints were buried in a 14-0 hole, courtesy of A.J. Brown, who turned poor Saints tackling into a 49-yard house call. But just before the half, trailing 14-3, Breeze switched the call and hit Jared Cook on a 61-yard scoring strike that was broken open by a tremendous sideline block by Kamara.
Did you see something with the mic that made you guys check to it?
Yeah, they were kind of all up, 2D safeties back, and he saw that, and he knew that Mike wouldn't be able to get back in time.
And in the third quarter, it was another Breeze check that led to another Saints touchdown, this time an audible to Alvin Kamara that helped him hit his groove and score his first touchdown since week 3.
We winning still, so, it is what it is. I would like to score, but, the wins are coming. I'm not really a selfish player. It is what it is, as long as we're having success.
In a way, it weighs on all of us. It's like, because he's such a big part of this offense and what we do, and I hope we broke that seal, and obviously he got in twice today, and hopefully there's a lot more where that came from.
But late in this contest, the Titans showed the Saints they weren't out of the woods just yet. After Tennessee cut New Orleans' lead to 3, they got the ball back with a chance to take the lead after the Saints failed to convert a fake punt. And that's when the rookie out of Florida, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, knocked the rock loose and forced a game-saving turnover.
I was trying to hurt the guy, honestly, truthfully. I was just trying to make a good football play, and the ball came out. So, I read his eyes the whole way. A quarterback wanting to go to his... When you stare a receiver down for like a million years, everybody should know where you're going. But like I said, I didn't try to hurt nobody. I was just being a football player, just playing a play.
And another shot at points also meant Mike Thomas could zero in on his best record yet. With this catch, Thomas set the NFL's new single-season record for receptions with 144, formerly held by former Colts great Marvin Harrison, who once posted 143 alongside Peyton Manning. And 2 plays later, Thomas caught 145 to seal a 10-point Saints road win.
Marvin is it's not many bad things you can say for him. He's a real professional, way he went about his business, and just to be in this position right now, it's a blessing. I don't take it for granted, but I would be selfish to be like, I just caught all these passes and did all this. Ultimately, I was catching passes to win the game, to help my team, to be in the position we're in now, so I just want to keep catching passes and end up where we want to be.
But Sunday did have a fly in the ointment. For some reason this year, penalties have continued to puzzle and plague this team. Today, 11 of them occurred, costing the Saints 70 yards, and 9 of them came during their first half struggles, leaving plenty to still be desired by this group.
I told them just 2 minutes ago, hey, you have to believe that from week to week you can improve, and this is a team that still can improve.
Let's go. Who that? Who that?
But the most important stat is they were 1-0 again this week. From Nashville, Andrew Doak, 4th Down on 4.
Yeah, and Mike Thomas didn't just break the single-season catch mark. He also broke Randy Moss's record for the most yards receiving in your first 4 seasons in the NFL. Thomas's numbers are historic. Now, Andrew got some analysis afterwards in Nashville.
Joined by Rod Walker, who works for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans and covers the Saints. Look, one thing that keeps popping out to me for the Saints team, whether it's offensively or defensively, the depth of this team is maybe deeper than any team that I've been around at any level. And it seems like they're able to plug and play guys on both sides and almost not skip a beat.
It's actually pretty incredible. I mean, this game, it was, Marcus Williams and Eli Apple go down, and they have to reshuffle the deck on the secondary. And this team just keeps finding a way to do it. And that's probably been the most impressive thing about this team going back, back to when Drew Brees got injured. I mean, they've just been able to plug those holes in.
No doubt about it. Look, I know you probably get a hard time reading Michael Thomas. It's incredible what he's done this year, breaking Marvin Harrison's record, and they still have a game left to play. Like, what do you make of the season that he's had, and not only doing it with just Brees, but other quarterbacks too, Taysom and Teddy?
Yeah, Taysom threw the pass to him today that actually tied the record, and, he's just been able to do it, and he's doing it in an offense where he's the man, and everybody knows he's the man,
right.
and they haven't been able to stop him, and that just says a lot about him. And, you talk to every player in their locker room, and they just talk about how hard of a worker he is, and how he treats every single rep in practice as if he's playing in the Super Bowl, and that intensity is what makes him who he is.
He's certainly in an elite group, but do you feel like he's the number 1 receiver in the NFL right now?
I think you look at his productivity. I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, he is putting up some crazy numbers, and again, like I said, I mean, everybody knows that he's the guy you have to stop, and they still can't stop him.
No one really conceded today that maybe it weighed on Alvin Kamara to notch his first touchdown since week 3, but I feel like that was something that probably, even though he's been very productive, something that probably did weigh on him a little bit throughout this season. Did you feel like you kind of saw him break the seal maybe, and maybe this will, make him more productive down the stretch?
Yeah, even talking to him, I guess it was last week, he talked about how he thought this kind of game was coming. I mean, I think he knew it was coming. I don't think he had lost any confidence, and he's such a team guy, and you saw him play the touchdown pass to Jared Cook. I mean, he's down there delivering the block that, that sent Cook to the end zone. So, I mean, he's a guy he's all about the team, I think, and obviously he wants to score. Everybody wants to score touchdowns.
Talking about some of those guys that have filled in, obviously C.J. Gardner-Johnson filling in for Von Bell, and, I thought he had the play of the game. Whenever it's a 3-point ball game, the Saints had just had that 4th and 7, I believe it was, where they ran the fake punt, and Hardy drops the ball, and then C.J. lays a great hit on one of the Titans receivers and is able to force that fumble and kind of shifted the momentum back to his side. But for a rookie, he carries himself with a different sort of confidence, right?
Yeah, he does, and Justin Hardy probably should send him a thank you card for bailing him out on that play. But just all game long, I mean, he just makes plays, and he's a guy that, Drew talked about it today. I mean, he has plays a lot of swagger, and he has a lot of confidence. And I remember back in training camp talking to him about that, and he said, he's from Florida, and that's where that confidence comes from. And he's shown it this rookie season. He's been a really special player for this defense.
You can't making plays like that, people will forgive you for being a Florida Gator around New Orleans. All right, Rod Walker of the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate, thanks for being with us, man. We'll send it back to you.
Coming up, the LSU Tigers arrived in Atlanta tonight for the college football playoff semifinal. And while Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't on crutches anymore, it's doubtful he'll play in the Peach Bowl. Plus, how LSU's busy postseason schedule affected their early signing period. While Willie Fritz brought in his best class so far at Tulane. And later, Teddy Bridgewater stepped in for the Saints when called upon this season. And now there's a children's book inspired by him. The LSU Tigers are in Atlanta tonight. Of course, they play Oklahoma Saturday afternoon in the Peach Bowl / National Championship semifinal. In the middle of that prep, they brought in a huge haul in the early signing period while dealing with the loss of their star running back. Ricardo LeCompte reports.
The most important piece to LSU's prolific offense, not named Joe Burrow. Clyde Edwards-Helaire provided the balance on the ground needed for the Tigers to set records through the air. And the SEC leader in rushing touchdowns suffered a hamstring injury at practice earlier this week. And the speculation is the injury will sideline LSU's leading rusher for the entire playoff run. So a running back by committee could be called upon to make up for the production of Edwards-Helaire.
Clyde is so versatile, they can do everything. And some of the guys, being young, they're good at one thing and maybe not as good on the other thing, and they're not as complete at bat. But all three of the guys can complement each other, and we can play all three of them to do the things that we need to do. Clyde's so versatile, we might need three guys to do what he needs to do if he can't play.
That wasn't the only loss LSU took this week. Early signing period saw the Tigers miss out on a few top-rated recruits, including one of the nation's top receivers and longtime LSU verbal commit, Rakeem Jarrett. He flipped his commitment during the early signing period and inked with Maryland. The awards tour and postseason schedule did play a factor in not being able to get some of those top-rated players.
It was crunch time. Obviously, we only had 1 week, and I had to go see 19 players in 1 week. I enjoyed it, but obviously I couldn't see everybody, and I think that hurt some guys' feeling that I couldn't go there, and understandably so. We didn't get everyone from out of state that we wanted. You know, we lost some, but that's going to happen. We feel that we did a very good job in the state. We feel like we signed the guys that we thought they could play at LSU.
But it wasn't a complete loss. LSU still signed some studs, and its 19-player class ranks in the top 5 right now with all the major recruiting services. 2 quarterbacks inked in the 2020 signing class. That's one position that will be under the microscope this offseason, with the departure of Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow.
Miles is going to be the first-string quarterback when we start. That doesn't mean he's going to be the first-string quarterback next year, but he's the guy. Yeah, those guys would have to beat him out.
And Ponchatoula quarterback TJ Finley is throwing his hat in the ring by being a mid-year enrollee. He joined the Tigers for bowl practice after signing his letter of intent.
Just getting that head start, getting to learn some things, getting some tips from Joe. I feel like it's going to be a good help and a boost for me.
Ogeron says they'll continue to work on the highly sought-after targets for National Signing Day. And in the meantime, they'll work on being ready for Oklahoma in a little less than a week in Atlanta. Ricardo Lecomte, 4th Down on 4.
All right, thanks, Ricardo. Joined by Sam Spiegelman, our good friend from Rivals.com. How much of Rakeem Jarrett and Jermaine Burton flipping off of LSU has to do with the fact that LSU is just stacked at wide receiver, and they were going to have a hard time, maybe an impossible time, seeing the field next year, and then you're looking 2 years away?
That's exactly what Georgia sold Jermaine Burton on. Obviously, he's out in California. He's from Georgia originally. They got him for a late official visit. They said, look at this passing game. It's on fire. They're so deep at wide receiver. Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall, all returning. They got a former 5-star in Trey Palmer, who hasn't even seen the field very much on offense. They sold him on depth chart that he could play quicker in Athens. So there's one. The X factor here was Rakeem Jarrett. Now, he wasn't supposed to sign in December. LSU was supposed to be able to continue to recruit him through February. That all changed in a very surprising fashion, probably the biggest surprise of the early signing period altogether. They kind of gave him the Stephon Diggs treatment in College Park. Stay home, be a difference maker here. And people in Louisiana can understand that. He's not from here. That's something you can sell distance on. Now he can stay close to home and start right away for Maryland.
Yeah, right. And again, a guy that I don't think would affect LSU next year at all because he wouldn't have been able to find the field. So given those late flips, how do you grade LSU's early signing period? Because we're looking at the misses, but there were a ton of hits, right?
Right. I mean, you could look at the 2 flips, right? But they also picked up 2 colossal blue-chip recruits today, an offensive tackle from Florida, a 5-star linebacker from Georgia. Those are needs. They always need offensive linemen. They always try to reinforce the trenches. Getting a blue-chip offensive tackle, that goes a long way. And you can't forget, Coach O said he was going to lock down the state. That wasn't even a question in 2020. All of the elite guys in the state of Louisiana are committed to LSU. They fended off Alabama, every other school. The only guys that are signing with rival SEC teams, rival schools altogether, are guys that LSU let loose toward the end. So guys like Keyshawn Butte, Coy Moore, Jaquelin Roy, they're all staying home. Obviously, there are still some guys out there that they would like to add, possibly even from the state. But for the most part, it's a fantastic class. I would still give it an A through the early signing period.
Yeah, and that is, to me, the most important thing going forward. You lock down the state. You know, some years it's going to be a little better than others, but if you can lock down Louisiana consistently, you're going to be good consistently. If you're looking at LSU right now, and I think Ed Ogeron said he has 6 scholarships left, what are you still looking for? What are the final pieces from a positional standpoint that you sort of need to get?
First and foremost, you have to get a running back. It's LSU, and I know they have this big passing game, but they love a balanced attack. Think about how big Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been in all their big games this season. Now, you have Tyrion Davis, who has been phenomenal in spot duty this season, and you have John Emery just waiting in the wings, and he is a bona fide superstar that's going to take over Baton Rouge at a certain point, but you still need to supplement the depth. They obviously want 5-star Zach Evans. I think he's a priority guy. He did not sign this week. He's supposed to announce at the Under Armour All-American game. That situation is very fluid, and you can't just fully trust Zach until he signs on the dotted line. They're going to go after a couple of different running backs, but that's a major position of need. They're still going to add more defensive linemen. I know it sounds crazy because they're so D-line heavy, especially from the state of Louisiana alone. But you know Coach O, and this team's identity is in the trenches. He's going to add more defensive linemen, more front seven players. And I know they got Phillip Webb during the early signing period, but they might add another linebacker. A guy like Edgerrin Cooper from Covington might be a name to watch, see how things fluctuate over the last couple of weeks of the signing cycle.
Sam, terrific job as always. Yeah, and there's still more drama building for February. And meanwhile, at Tulane, Willie Fritz raved about his class. Ricardo has that story.
Speed it up here.
A 5-1 start.
What a great ball fake for Justin McMillan.
But a 1-5 finish.
McMillan hit as he throws.
Not the ideal way to reach bowl eligibility. But nevertheless, the Green Wave are making a bowl trip in consecutive seasons, a rarity for the program. These are the necessary steps in trying to resurrect football uptown. It's a process head coach Willie Fritz wants to continue to be a part of, even as other schools around the country began to take interest in him for the progress he's made in New Orleans. Athletic Director Troy Dannon has announced publicly he will give Fritz a new deal to stay at Tulane. His current deal runs through 2023. A new one could be worked out after the Green Wave's bowl game.
I feel real good about it, and Troy and I have had some conversations, and I'm very flattered that he'd do this for me, so I'm excited about it.
Now, Fritz won't need it, but a bargaining chip he could bring to the negotiations is showing the job he's done on the recruiting trail. And this latest signing class could be the highest rated one ever at Tulane. 18 players inking during the early signing period, and almost all of them are 3-star rated athletes.
I really feel like this is really by far the best one that we've had, and I don't want to slight our other classes, but we beat a lot of other members of the Power Six. I guess I better phrase it right.
Tulane won recruiting battles for quality players, including the homegrown ones. It's one thing to get the student athlete who wants to go to Tulane.
A lot of kids grow up loving LSU and state, but Tulane was my LSU, and I've been a season ticket holder. You know, my grandpa's father was a ticket worker at the old Tulane Stadium. My other grandfather graduated from there, so, you know, it just connects all like that.
But it's another to attract a player with multiple offers from quality Power 5 schools.
This is big boy football, and I think the high school coaches, the student athletes are starting to understand that, and then we're having success. And they're seeing us play on national TV. When we get those opportunities to go out there and play, and you got to play well, I think it really helps you out.
And the Green Wave can look good again on that stage with a bowl win January 4th against Southern Miss. Reporting uptown, Ricardo LeCompte, 4th Down on 4.
Still ahead, Teddy Bridgewater helped save the Saints season, and now there's a children's book inspired by him, and he shed some insight on his 2019 experience as well. Those stories when we come back. One of the great happenings in this Saints season was how New Orleans embraced Teddy Bridgewater. With Drew Brees out, Bridgewater, of course, started 5 games in the first half of the season. He won them all. And there's now actually a children's book out inspired by Bridgewater. He spoke about it this week at the Kenner Discovery School.
I'm honored to be here with you guys today. I'm Teddy Bridgewater. I started playing sports when I was 6 years old, and I remember spending summer nights at my grandmother's house, and she used to always tell me, yeah, you're good in sports and things like that, but you have something else that'll take you a long way. And I used to always ask her, what are you talking about? And she was like, you have, a powerful mind. With that powerful mind, I knew that I could apply it to anything that I wanted to, and I chose to apply it to my education. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I was the first to actually graduate. And I have a children's book based on my life. It's called Little Bear Teddy, Big Dream Come True. Have you ever closed your eyes tight and dreamed a dream with all your might? Every little boy and girl dreams a dream that they wish could come true. Sometimes it may seem bigger than an elephant, but it is never too big for you. I was once in their shoes. As children, we have so much energy, so much potential, and sometimes we just need the right individuals to bring it out of us. And it was just great to be able to share my story and hopefully motivate different children, to understand that in order to make your dream come true, have your dream come true, there's going to be some things that you have to take care of, whether that's working hard, doing your homework, taking care of academics.
Yeah, that story from Channel 4 photojournalist Neil Gerentano. Now, some bonus Teddy. For me, Bridgewater is one of the most likable guys to ever play for the Saints. He took questions from kids in Kenner. Here are two answers that I think illustrate that. On the first, he admits he wasn't ready when Drew Brees went down.
I can open the floor up to you guys if you have any questions or things like that. Yeah, so when Drew got injured, it actually humbled me. Because going into that game, I had been here a year and a half, and I just told myself, man, I'm sitting behind Drew Brees. This is a guy who hasn't missed a game in however long. So, I'm just here, just in case we were blowing a team out or something like that. And when I went into the game, I was unprepared. And I was unprepared for the uncertain. And right then and there, it showed. We lost the game, and I didn't play my best football. And it taught me a valuable lesson that you never know when your number's going to be called. You never know when your opportunity's going to come, and you have to be prepared. And you can't look at, the person who's in front of you and think, man, this guy has it all under control, or this person has it all under control. You have to stay just as ready as that person. And when we lost that game, I told myself I'll never put myself in that situation again to where I'm not prepared. And I was able to play those next 5 games, and we won. But just always be prepared. You never know when your opportunity is going to come in. It showed. He said, do I have any advice for being a quarterback? Don't do it. But no, just as a quarterback, everyone's always watching you. Everyone's going to give you all the credit, and everyone's going to always blame you. And you have to have tough shoulders. You have to have thick skin. You have to understand that, it's never going to be perfect. You're always going to be criticized. You're always going to be judged. But at the end of the day, as a quarterback, your job is to lead your team, instill hope into your huddle, and just, be that guy that everyone loves. And at the end of the day, everything else will take care of itself.
Here's a shocker. We are way out of time. Merry Christmas from all of us here at Eyewitness Sports. We'll see you next week here on 4th Down on 4.